Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, the 1st of September 2020. I trust you've been having a good day, a good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're watching us from this afternoon here. A lovely sunny afternoon from Nairobi, Kenya, where we are coming to you from. My name is Mira Mogutu. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. Of course, the television station is Punchline Africa TV. And on this show, if you're new and you're watching us today, get to look at the news that making headline across the continent. Earlier on in the morning, we were looking at the news that was making headlines across Kenya, and we dealt with the Kenyan politics there. So right now, let's just change gear and get into it. What else is making news across the continent? And we start with Rwanda. The daughter of Hotel Rwanda film hero Paul Rusesabagina, who was arrested on terror charges, has said the family hasn't heard from him. Anaise Kanimba told the BBC's Newsday program that the family last heard from him on Thursday when he called to say he had landed in Dubai. Mrs. Kanimba said her father couldn't have traveled to Rwanda on his own will, and they believe he was kidnapped. Mr. Rusesabagina, a well-known critic of President Paul Kagame, has been living outside Rwanda since 1996, and Mrs. Kanimba said her father has not sent out any message to them. And then we go to Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwean government has said that white farmers whose tracts of land were seized in 2000 and 2001 under a government program of land reform can apply to get them back. Where the land cannot be given back, the farmers will be offered elsewhere, according to a joint statement by Finance Minister Tuli Nkube and Lands and Agriculture Minister Anxious Masuka. The minister said the government would revoke offer letters to black farmers who were resettled in the land. They said the white farmers whose land was to be seized by government but is yet to be taken can apply to lease the land for 99 more years. Some 3,500 white farmers were evicted from their farms during the controversial land reforms. Zimbabwe's government agreed in May to pay $3.5 billion US dollars in compensation to white farmers whose lands were taken during the land reforms. And I'm not sure how Zimbabweans are feeling about this. Please let me know what your thoughts are by this move by the Zimbabwean government there, and perhaps you shall look at it and let me know what you think and what you make of this move there by the government. All right, and some new worrying news, and the charity Save the Children is warning that nearly 70,000 children in sub-Saharan Africa are at a risk of dying from extreme hunger before the end of the year. It says that COVID-19 lockdown measures have meant families are facing a serious decline in their livelihoods, and nutritious food is becoming increasingly hard to find or is just expensive. And then we move to Nigeria, where resident doctors in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, will begin an indefinite strike today morning over non-payment of what they term they began the strike over in the morning over what they term as non-payment of what they of the COVID-19 hazard and inducement allowances since April. The Association of Resident Doctors said the authorities have failed to fulfill pledges to pay its members who are working in coronavirus isolation and treatment centers as well as hospitals. It said the strike comes after the expiry of the 14-day ultimatum it had given the authorities. The association leaders in a statement say they also want the government to address non-payment promotion areas since 2016, non-remittance of deductions including pensions and non-payment of rural allowances. The authorities in Nigeria capital have not yet commented on the strike, but the doctors have vowed they will not go back to work until their demands are met. And then we move to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Very sad news there. And armed militia attacked a school and raped female students on the eve of the examinations in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The men attacked an examination center housing 35 final year students in Isiro town, or to the capital of Haut-Uele in province. The students went on to sit for the examinations on Monday. According to a priest in the area, hundreds of students fled after an attack near another examination center, according to AFP news agency. Some 700 students and teachers fled after the attack near the border with South Sudan. And then we head over to Guinea, and the president of Guinea, Alpha Conde, has accepted his party's nomination to seek a controversial third term. Mr. Conde, who was first elected in 2010, pushed through a constitutional change in a referendum in March, which allowed him to stand for a third term. The vote was boycotted by the opposition and sparked mass protest. In early August, Guinea's ruling party nominated the 82-year-old president to represent it in the elections in October, but at the time, he made no formal response. His efforts to stay in power have raised concerns Guinea will go the way of the other African countries whose rulers have refused to step down after their mandates expired. And even as we look at, this Guinea story, President Alpha Conde, of course, his mandate ends this year, according to the constitution there in Guinea, 2 terms, 5 years each. He's refused to leave, and we see the similar, the similar problem there in, what do you call it? The similar problem there in Ivory Coast with former President Alassane Ouattara. Okay, still President Alassane Ouattara, not really former, but he would have been at the end of the year, if at all he would not have run for these elections, because the constitution there in Ivory Coast also allows for 2 terms, 5 years each, but as it is, Alassane Ouattara has insisted that he will continue running for another term, even against the constitution. So that is the similar situation there. Guinea finds itself with President Alpha Conde insisting on running on a third illegal term there against the constitution of Guinea. And we head over to Mali, where Mali's military leaders have held a series of meetings with political, social, and religious groups to discuss the transition to civilian rule. The talks were due to take place on Saturday, but were postponed due to disagreements with the M5 RFP group, which led the massive protest against the former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, who was overthrown almost a fortnight ago. M5 RFP insists it is given an equal role to the military during the transition period. West African leaders have called for an immediate return to constitutional order, but the military says the transition will last at least 2 years. All right, and then we head over to South Africa, and South Africa's governing African National Congress has fallen in step behind President Cyril Ramaphosa's fight against corruption. In a strongly worded statement, the party's top decision-making body agreed that any member who is formally charged with corruption should step down from all leadership positions in the party. The decision is seen as a blow to powerful figures linked to country's former President Jacob Zuma. It might be obvious that any party official charged with corruption should step down from a leadership position, but the ANC is so consumed by fighting and by corruption, and the proposal has proven deeply controversial. However, President Ramaphosa has now won the argument, imposing his will on the party and scoring a significant victory against a powerful faction linked to former President Jacob Zuma. All right, and then we head over to somewhere back here in East Africa, and in Uganda. I'm trying to see the link, if at all it's there. Production, I don't know if we have the link running there. I'm trying to look for it. Okay, but that's okay. So in Uganda, the decision by the government of Uganda to introduce a fee for voluntary tests for COVID-19 threatens to disrupt travel and the resumption of tourism as well as trade. It will even affect the return of Ugandan citizens from abroad. On Sunday evening, the government issued a directive requiring agencies to charge $65 per test. It affects cross-border truck drivers, visitors to the country and Ugandans who go home. Organizations that plan to test their staff and individuals who want to know if they have contracted the virus will also have to pay. The government in Kampala says the fee will contribute to the cost of managing the pandemic. So far, 350,000 people have been tested, revealing about 2,900 positive cases and at least 30 deaths so far there in Uganda. And so this fee apparently was introduced as a way of Ugandan government to control the spread of COVID-19. I don't understand how that is even, that will help in containing the spread of COVID-19, but apparently that is what the government of Uganda there said. This money will go a long way in assisting in combating the spread of COVID-19 there in Uganda. And then we move to Ivory Coast, where two more candidates are officially in the running to be president in Côte d'Ivoire in time for the Monday night submission deadline. Both candidacy bids were filled in their absence and in spite of earlier decision taken in August to exclude the bid of anyone convicted of crime or misdemeanor and stripped of their civil rights by the Independent Electoral Commission. And these two candidates are the former leader Guillaume Soro, that is the first one, and now officially in the running to be the next Ivorian president, currently self-imposed exile in France, and the former ally of President Ouattara and his candidacy bid. And the next one is Laurent Gbagbo. So now they've been cleared to run there for the presidency in Ivory Coast. And as I said there, Ivory Coast is also, facing the same dilemma there as Guinea, as both presidents' terms, ended, but they have insisted on going for a third term that is illegal. And if you ask me, that looks like more of a constitutional coup there. If you are a president who swore to, live up to the constitution of the republic that you headed, and you just go against it with impunity like that and decide to disregard whatever the content is there that bars you from running again, isn't that a constitutional coup? It looks more like it. All right, so we go to Sudan, and the High Court in Sudan has once again adjourned its session today in the trial of the former President Omar al-Bashir. Bashir and 27 others were to appear before a judge for crimes related to the bloodless coup over 30 years ago. As a colonel in the Sudanese army, al-Bashir led a group of army officers in ousting the elected coalition government of the then Prime Minister Sadiq al-Mahdi on 30th June 1989. After his removal from office last year, Bashir has faced several charges, including corruption and other malpractices, to which he has been sentenced to jail. If convicted of the coup against the democratically elected government, he could face a death penalty. At this point, I don't think Omar al-Bashir has really anything to lose. I mean, his freedom has been denied. He's been in jail since, last year. He's been charged with some other charges before. So at this point, I think he's even gotten used to the idea of not even enjoying some of these freedoms at all, some of these rights, and so I don't know if Omar al-Bashir has anything to lose at this point. But for others, I'm sure, even the ones who are right now part of the military team that are part of the transitional government there in Sudan, I'm sure, they are worried where they are. Because if this trial, that has started, was to go on, and then who knows? Because a lot of them, participated in that coup there. So quite interesting to see how that will play out. And then we go to Nigeria. Back to Nigeria, and the Interim Management Committee, IMC, of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, has said that if it releases the list of those involved in looting the commission, the country will break. The IMC has also accused members of the National Assembly of plotting to destroy the forensic audit ordered by President Muhammadu Buhari, the executive director in charge of Assembly. But isn't that why the committee is there? They were given a job to do. Remember, I think the committee, the chairman, was the one who fainted when he was before a parliament there in Nigeria. Remember, the guy who fainted there. So now one of the members there is saying that Nigerians will be shocked by the names that and the people and the personalities that have been involved in this corruption there in the Niger Delta Development Commission. The names that are coming up during these investigations. But isn't that why this commission was formed in the first place? And you're supposed to be presenting, these names. So perhaps some of these people that are afraid of naming are the ones who've been making the loudest noises there in Parliament. I'm not sure. But I think they owe it to Nigerians to let them know, the content and the findings of this committee in line with corruption and the fight against corruption there in Nigeria, because the last we checked, this official there, I think, fainted during, when they were going through was just sat down and they started grilling him and he fainted in front of the parliament. So now we're being told that Nigerians will be shocked by some of the names that might come out from this finding, and I say, go ahead, release them. That's why you are formed in the first place, and Nigerians must be waiting to hear the recommendations and the names and everything that has to do with the mandate that you were given there. So please do Nigerians a favor. And then we head over to Cameroon, and 17 Ambazonian fighters are reported to have been killed, 7 arrested, and locally made weapons seized during a military operation in Fandong, Boyo Division in the restive northwest region of Cameroon. Now, the announcement was made on Monday during the 1 p.m. news over the national radio Sierra TV. According to the commander of the 5th Joint Military Region, Brigadier General Nka Valere, who visited the divisional headquarters on Monday, the operation in Fondong took the soldiers 6 days. Speaking to journalists in the region, the security officials said the soldiers stormed the different Ambazonian camps in the locality, killing 17 and arresting 7 in the process. Now, besides that, the items found in their possession, including locally made weapons, gas cylinders, and marijuana, to name but a few, were seized during that operation. All right, and still some news from Ambazonia there in Cameroon, and the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa has made public a list of atrocities committed by the military in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon on May 1st, between May to August 2020. The rights group says the military committed extrajudicial executions, arbitrary arrest, unlawful detention, looting and extortion, poor prison condition, to name but a few. It has called for investigations to be opened in the above-mentioned atrocities. And while they're calling for investigations to open, I don't know who they're expecting will be investigating this. And perhaps for our viewers who are just joining, I think we had a problem with our initial link, and I might have read some news that you perhaps did not hear. So I might be forced to repeat the first ones that I started with, I think, if I'm not very wrong, so that I can bring us up to date with what is happening there. We had a bit of a problem in our initial link there. So I started with some news from Rwanda, and the daughter of Hotel Rwanda film hero Paul Rusesabagina, who was arrested on terror charges, has said the family hasn't heard from him. Anaise Kanimba told the BBC's Newsday program that the family had last heard from him on Thursday when he called to say he had landed in Dubai. Miss Kanimba said her father couldn't have traveled to Rwanda on his own will, and they believe he was kidnapped. Mr. Rusesabagina is a well-known critic of President Paul Kagame and has been living outside Rwanda since 1996. Miss Kanimba said her father has not sent out any message to them. And then we head to Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwean government has said that white farmers whose tracts of land were seized between 2000 and 2001 under a government program of land reform can apply to get them back. Where the land cannot be given back, the farmers will be offered land elsewhere, according to a joint statement by Finance Minister Mtuli Kobe and Lands and Agriculture Minister Anxious Masuka. Now, the minister said the government will revoke offer letters to black farmers who were resettled in the land. All right, that's just a recipe for chaos right there. Zimbabwean government. And they said the white farmers whose land was to be seized by government but is yet to be taken can apply to lease the land for another 99 years. Some 3,500 white farmers were evicted from their farms during the controversial land reforms, and Zimbabwe's government agreed in May to pay $3.5 billion in compensation to white farmers whose land was taken during the land reforms. I don't know what you make of this, I don't know what you make of this. Let me know what you make of this, story from Zimbabwe. So the government has decided these land reforms that the late President Robert Mugabe introduced to return the land to the people who rightfully owned this land in the first place. So now President Mnangagwa has come out and said, okay, so this is what has been bringing us, problems. I don't know if that was the premise, but we know that the land reforms really had the late now Robert Mugabe in very bad books with the Western world there after he decided to reclaim back those lands between 2000 and 2001, and that spelled a lot of doom and gloom for Zimbabwe. Sanctions came in fast and furious. So after all this economy being crippled and targeted sanctions, and it's just bad things there in Zimbabwe. Maybe perhaps the government of Zimbabwe has maybe seen they cannot exactly win this war. But I don't know if returning this land like that to the white farmers, the white commercial farmers, about 3,500 of them, I don't know if that will be, I don't know, that is supposed to be what? To appease, I guess, especially UK, which bailed out in its promise when these land reforms were supposed to be introduced. UK was supposed to be compensating, help Zimbabwe in compensating some of these farmers, and it failed on its part. So that burden was left with Zimbabwe, which was unable to. And at this point, this is land that belonged to Zimbabweans. When the white settlers came, they were pushed to areas that were not productive at all. And then these few white settlers took up the lands that were fertile. They drove Zimbabweans away from these lands. So essentially what the former president Mugabe was doing was just reclaiming, what he used to term as stolen property. When you go to take back stolen property, you should even, jail the person who's handling stolen property. That is what the late President Mugabe used to say. But nevertheless, I don't know if now the idea of President Emmerson Mnangagwa to return this land to Zimbabweans, I don't know how it will be met. I don't know how Zimbabweans will feel about it, especially who had gone and taken up these lands and settled down on them. Maybe others had even sold and, things like that. So it's quite interesting there. So let's just see how that will work out. And in other news, I think, the Nigerian doctors in the capital Abuja are supposed to have started their strike today over non-payment of what they term as COVID-19 hazard and inducement allowances April. The Association of Resident Doctors said the authorities had failed to fulfill pledges to pay its members who were working in coronavirus isolation and treatment centers as well as hospitals. It said the strike comes after the expiry of a 14-day ultimatum it had given the authorities, and the association's leader in a statement said they also want the government to address non-payment of promotion arrears since 2016, non-remittance of deductions including pensions and non-payment of rural allowances. I think this is not the first time that the Nigerian doctors there, especially from the capital Abuja, are threatening to go on strike, especially since the coming of COVID-19. Perhaps this is the third or so time that we're reading this news. So I'm just hoping that the government there, the responsible office, will take care of that, because this is not the time you want a doctor or anybody in the health fraternity to go on strike. And we also looked at the news from Guinea. We had a problem, as I said there earlier, with our initial links. I have to repeat all this news that I had read earlier, but no problem, we have time. And the president of Guinea, Alpha Conde, has accepted his party's nomination to seek a controversial third term. Mr. Conde, who was first elected in 2010, pushed through a constitutional change in a referendum in March, which allowed him to stand for a third term. What I call a constitutional coup. Now, the vote was boycotted by the opposition and sparked mass protest. And in early August, Guinea's ruling party nominated the 82-year-old president to represent it in the elections in October, but at the time he made no formal response. His efforts to stay in power have raised concerns. Guinea will go the way of some other African countries whose rulers have refused to step down after their mandates have expired. And I think we drew parallels there with what is happening now in Ivory Coast. And perhaps I should just find the story. It's right here. And two more candidates are officially in the running to be president in Côte d'Ivoire in time for the Monday night submission deadline. They were able to meet the deadline yesterday. Both candidates' bids were filed in their absence and in spite of the other earlier decision taken in August to exclude the bid of anyone convicted of crime or misdemeanor stripped of their civil rights by the Independent Electoral Commission. And these two new candidates are none other than the former president, Laurent Gbagbo. Now he's been allowed to run for Côte d'Ivoire's presidency, and also the rebel leader, Guillaume Soro. And now officially they'll be running for the next Ivorian president. Currently self-imposed exile in France. Soro is in France. The former ally of President Ouattara had his candidacy bid, which was initially rejected by Independent Electoral Commission there in Ivory Coast. All right. And also we looked at the news in Sudan, where the High Court in Sudan has once again adjourned its session today in the trial of the former President Omar al-Bashir. Bashir and 27 others were to appear before a judge for crimes related to the bloodless coup over 30 years ago. As a colonel in the Sudanese army, al-Bashir led a group of army officers in ousting the elected coalition government of the then President Sadiq al-Mahdi on 30th June 1989. After his removal from office last year, Bashir has faced several charges, including corruption and other malpractices, to which he has been sentenced to jail. If convicted for the coup against the democratically elected government, he could face a death penalty. And at this point, I was just wondering, what else does Omar al-Bashir stand to lose? I think if even they've taken away, your freedom, what is really happening there. And in Uganda, very interesting decision there by the government, and the decision by the Ugandan government to introduce a fee for voluntary tests for COVID-19 threatens to disrupt travel and the resumption of tourism as well as trade. It will even affect the return of Ugandan citizens from abroad. On Sunday evening, the government issued a directive requiring agencies to charge $65 per test. It affects cross-border truck drivers, visitors to the country, and Ugandans who go home. Organizations that plan to test their staff and individuals who want to know if they have contracted the virus will also have to pay. The government in Kampala says the fee will contribute to the cost of managing the pandemic. So far, 350,000 people have been tested, revealing about 2,900 positive cases and at least 30 deaths. But what I'm wondering is, this $65 that are you supposed to pay before you're tested, the government says it is supposed to help in controlling the spread of COVID-19. I don't know how that is going to help, because people who can't afford that will not go to the hospital. So in essence, what Ugandan government is doing here is to discourage people to go to the test. President Museveni, with the rising numbers there that we've seen, in the recent past, and even the number of deaths, as much as it is low, but it should be a worry for the last month or so. It has been going up there, so that should perhaps even have you do more tests so that more people can be tested, and so that you're able to bring COVID-19 under control. But introducing this higher fee, testing fee, with an aim to help, control the numbers there, I do not understand how this is supposed to work there, because more people will shy away from going to the hospitals because they cannot really afford to pay for that fee because it's very high. And in Mali, Mali's military leaders have held a series of meetings with political, social and religious groups to discuss a transition to civilian rule. The talks were due to take place on Saturday but were postponed due to disagreements with the M5 RFP group, which led the massive protest against the former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. He was overthrown almost a fortnight ago. M5 RFP insists it is given an equal role to the military during the transition period. See? So now the protest side, which actually said they were not really interested in any power sharing of any kind, led by that cleric, or he's the one that said. So perhaps some other members of the protest side were interested. So now what they're saying is they demand for an equal role, the side of the military during this transition period. I don't know if the military, from what we've seen there in Mali, will be willing to even share an equal role with the civilian side, and because the last time we checked, the West African leaders had called for an immediate return to the constitutional order, but the military says the transition will last at least 2 years. So it is even the MF RFP side, that is the protest side, that was saying if you were to stay any longer, then it should be between 18 months and 24 months. That is about 2 years. And we talked about it here, yesterday. And so initially the military wanted to stay there for 3 years, and ECOWAS had given them an ultimatum of just 1 year if at all they were to extend their stay there. So we're already seeing there, if now the protesters are coming out and saying, I think they realize, and I think I've said this since last week, they've realized that having this military on the helm of the leadership of this country might not be such a good idea after all. And because we're used to a civilian role where you could go out and protest, you could go out and raise your concerns, but now it's the military role. You can't do that. Military is military. So I've said it before and I've repeated it after the military insisted on their stay on. I said this is not a good idea, and clearly this cannot be a good idea, and we see already the cracks in that union, and the civilians are really beginning to get a bit jittery on the overstay of the military in those streets there in Mali. Military should go back to the barracks. That's where they belong, unless a country has an emergency that requires them to come out of the barracks. But always it's a good idea if they're just somewhere in the barracks, worrying about the safety of the country. But anything to do with election and leadership, they should leave that to the people. All right. And also this news from Nigeria. The Interim Management Committee, IMC, of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, has said that if it releases the list of those involved in looting the commission, the country will break. The IMC also accused members of the National Assembly of plotting to stall the forensic audit ordered by President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, the executive director in charge of the projects at the NDDC, Dr. Cairo Ojogbo, who made the allegations while speaking to Vanguard in Abuja, said that Nigeria will be shocked if the commission releases the names and the caliber of persons involved in the contract scam in 2017 and 2019, especially among the members of the National Assembly. This is the person I was saying earlier, I think before we got interrupted there, that the guy that appeared before Parliament there in Nigeria and fainted at the start of the inquiry to look into the corruption that had plagued the Niger Delta Development Commission. Remember, the guy that fainted there, I don't know if he was able to come back and, give an account of, answer to Parliament. So now apparently one of the members there in that committee is coming out and saying, Nigerians will be shocked because the names that have come out throughout these investigations are perhaps people that Nigerians will not even think. And maybe some of these people were the loudest in terms of, calling for audit, calling for investigations and things like that. And so they're saying, Nigerians, you don't even want to know what is contained in this list. And I'm just wondering, you were given a job, to do. So you owe it to the people of Nigeria to present the name and the report and the findings of this report so that they're able to see who are these that are conduits to corruption, who are these that are aiding and baiting corruption there in Nigeria, and what possible actions should be taken against them. So by you coming here and telling Nigerians that you're not even ready to release this report because it will shock Nigerians. I don't think there's anything that can shock Nigerians further than anything that has happened before that, is always shocking. There's always some shocking news there from Nigeria. So thank you so much for watching. IK Junior, I don't know where you've been, but we've been talking about that matter here since it happened. So please look through one of our past, broadcasts before, and you'll see us address that matter. But thank you so much for your time. Let's meet here tomorrow for other news making headlines across the continent. My name is Miriam Magutu. A very good afternoon to you. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.